thank you all for joining us this evening for a town hall on violence in our community. Of course, I am your Commissioner, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, and I sit here this evening alongside Commissioner Terry. This town hall is due to an overwhelming request from the community. Many of you that are here this evening have expressed concerns over violence that you have seen either firsthand, violence in your community, or as a result of what you may see when you turn on the television. This evening we have assembled an entire team of individuals who represent a variety of departments here in DeKalb County that deal with crime and violence on a first-hand basis. Before we start the introductions of the panel members, and we're going to attempt to move briskly because we have 40 minutes this evening for Q&A. We have received an extensive list of questions, and those have already been sent out to the panelists. We want to answer your questions. We want to make you aware of our efforts to ensure your safety, and we want you to have the opportunity to engage with us. But before we start, we will watch a brief video that will help set the tone for what we experience in terms of crime and violence here in our communities.
To the US now, which is facing a national security emergency. Thousands of people are being killed on roads, in schools, in shopping malls, not at the hands of Al-Qaeda or ISIS terrorists, but at the hands of fellow Americans, empowered by their law to carry assault weapons. 3 weeks, 40 mass shootings and counting, the latest being in the Washington state. Welcome to America in 2023. Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Texas, Utah, California, and all the other states marked in the red in this map have witnessed mass shootings in the month of January, this month. Gun terror in the US is now daily news. More than 45,000 people died due to gun-related injuries in 2020. For the last 2 years, they don't have complete data, but the trajectory is quite clear. Mass shootings have risen steadily since 2014 and sharply since 2020. Fun fact, the US is the only country in the world which has more guns than people. And these are civilian guns that we're talking about. Not the military or the police, more civilian guns than civilians. They have 120 guns for every 100 people. And they have a law that allows all of this. It's called the Second Amendment of the US Constitution. The Second Amendment. It gives every American the right to carry arms, and around a third of America's adults say they carry arms. You see, guns are an emotive issue in the US. And gun control, a very contentious subject. Here's a familiar script. A mass shooting takes place, horror, shock, tears, and sound bites by politicians, both Republicans and Democrats. They condemn the incident, they offer their thoughts and prayers, and they move on until the next shooting. Why don't they stop this? After all, American leaders launch operations to fight terror in far-flung lands. Why don't they fight gun terror at home? Because politics and gun lobbies and big money connect the dots. After every...
Okay, what we have is a dynamic issue. It is far greater than just the presence of guns in our community. We are facing what I deem to be a more violent society overall. I believe that there are many issues that contribute to what we experience. I believe that it also has to start within the school system because we need to educate students on conflict resolution, also soft skills and communication. But this evening, we are going to talk about a variety of issues that are local to DeKalb, and we will start with introducing our panel members. Our first panel member this evening is Mr. Zachary Williams. He is the Executive Assistant and Chief Operating Officer for DeKalb County. His distinguished background in public service includes serving in leadership posts in counties and municipalities across the Southeast. Most recently, Mr. Williams served as county manager for Fulton County, where he administered essential services and programs to nearly 1 million residents. Currently, he serves as the Chief Operating Officer here in DeKalb County. Thank you so much for being present, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Sherry, just
Good evening, everyone. My name is Commissioner Ted Terry, your Super District 6 Commissioner. Serve alongside my colleague here, Commissioner Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, and it's really great to be here this evening. I'm going to help introduce our panelists. So next up on our panel this evening is Chief Mirtha Ramos. She began her law enforcement career in 1997 with the Miami-Dade Police Department, where she served in various assignments and rose through the ranks. In 2016, she was appointed as Division Chief of the Miami-Dade Police Department. On November 4th, 2019, Chief Ramos was appointed to Chief of DeKalb County Police Department, where she is responsible for the daily operations of the DeKalb County Police Department and the safety of DeKalb's 700,000 plus residents. Let's welcome her this evening.
The next panel member that we have in queue is Assistant Chief Hughes. Mr. Hughes was actually born and raised in DeKalb County. He started his law enforcement career in 1993 with the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office. He began with the DeKalb County Police Department in 1994. He has worked on patrol for 4 years before becoming a detective here in DeKalb. He left the department in 1998 to pursue entrepreneurship, and he was the owner-operator of the Wesley Chapel Chick-fil-A for 2 years before returning to the police department. Upon returning, he moved up in the ranks to sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major, and currently his role as chief over the uniform division. He worked previously in the gang unit, accreditation, homeland security, and the uniform division. Thank you so much, Chief Hughes, for joining us.
Next, we have Assistant Chief Patrick. He is the Criminal Investigation Division Commander for the DeKalb County Police Department, serving for 26 years in a variety of positions. To highlight just a few, he has served on the homicide, auto theft, narcotics, and intelligence units. Patrick graduated from the FBI National Academy, the 247th session. He has also completed the Southern Police Institute's Chief Executive Leadership course and earned numerous levels of certification from the Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council. Let's welcome him.
Next, we have Sergeant Charles Flood, who has served 10 years in the U.S. Navy. His transition to civilian life steered him to begin a career in law enforcement in 1996 with the Montgomery Police Department. In 2003, he relocated to Atlanta after joining the DeKalb County Police Department. This charge led to 20 years of service with the department in various areas, and on June 26, 2021, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant, where he is currently the unit commander over the Advanced Technology Unit. Thank you, Sergeant Flood, for joining us.
All right, and joining us with our police department is our fire rescue team here as well. And so introducing Fire Chief Darnell Fulham. He has over 36 years of fire service experience. He has served as the fire chief of the DeKalb County Fire Rescue Department since 2014. Prior to that, he served for 21 years with the Fulton County Fire Department. Over the course of his career, he performed in several positions as previously appointed in roles in the fire department. He served 3 years as infantry soldier and squad leader in the United States Army, where he received an honorable discharge. Let's welcome Chief Fulham.
And rounding out our panel this evening is our Chief Probation Officer, DeAndre T. Allen, who began his career in Michigan as a direct care worker and supervisor, as well as youth counselor assigned to juvenile girls ages 12 through 17. He went on to work as respite program manager at Covenant House in Florida. Later, he was recruited by the Gwinnett County Police Department, where he earned basic basic and advanced certifications. Prior to joining the DeKalb County Juvenile Court, he worked for Clark Atlanta University's Police Department. His experience, list of certifications, and training has allowed him to advance in his career, growing his abilities in leadership and supervision. Thank you so much, Chief Allen, for joining us as well. We have a very diverse panel here this evening that covers a variety of areas that are associated with policing and justice. And at this time, we wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge any elected officials who may be present here this evening. If you will, please stand so that you can be recognized. Yes, thank you so much. We have our DA, Sherry Boston, who has joined us this evening. We also have with us Clint, what is your last name? Clint Monroe, and Clint Monroe is one of our council members. He is actually from the city of Stone Mountain, and thank you so much. We appreciate your presence here this evening. And at this time, I would like to acknowledge any individuals who are currently seeking elected office who has joined us this evening. Thank you so much. I know that we have Dion McGee with us this evening, and if you will, just give your name and the position that you're seeking.
Good evening. My name is Dion McGee. I am running for DeKalb County State Court Judge. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tyshawn Jackson, and I'm running to be DeKalb next State Court Judge.
Okay, thank you so much, Tyshawn Jackson.
I'm Lance Hammons. I'm running to be the next District 4 County Commissioner.
And Lance Hammonds, thank you so much. We appreciate you all coming out. Also this evening, we wanted to acknowledge that in the back of the room, we have our gun locks and safety program that is present. And I do believe that Chief Ramos may share more information, but if you are going to have a gun, a firearm in your home, please store it safely. This evening, we're giving free gun boxes as well as locks, so feel free to join the table. We also have some nonprofits with us, and Commissioner Terry, we're going to follow the script, so I believe that's on you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. We have joining us, if they'll stand also, Black Push Incorporated, President and founder Sean Smith. Let's welcome him. Just a little bit about them. Since their founding in 2016, Black Push Incorporated has worked to help fight against recidivism and aid individuals transitioning from prison back into society. Since then, Black Push Incorporated has expanded to fight gun violence, voter suppression, and social injustices. Black Push is dedicated to fighting for equality for everyone. This is reflected in their values and approach to hitting the pavement. The team attends rallies and peaceful protests that align with their vision of equality for all. At Black Push's core, they are a faith-centered organization that serves a God of second chances. They focus on gun violence, social injustice, fighting recidivism, voter suppression, and rehabilitation ministry, and we're so happy to have them here this evening. Thank you.
Okay, and at this time, because we have so many presenters, we're going to go directly into the, our agenda is printed. And the first presentation that we have this evening will be by our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Zachary Williams, and he will give a public safety introduction.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochran-Johnson, and I really welcome the opportunity to come, one, to the facility. It's been a while since I've been here. And two, I definitely appreciate the leadership of Commissioner Cochran-Johnson as well as Commissioner Terry for hosting this event, because what is going on as it relates to crime, as it relates to public safety, whether it is issues of perceived safety or real safety, I mean, it's something that we need to definitely get our arms around. So at this point, what we want to do is just have kind of a conversation. The Chief of Police, Chief Ramos, will talk through some of the major initiatives that are taking place in the police department. We'll talk about how we are trying to be proactive and address issues before they arise, how we're trying to target our resources and leverage our resources as much as possible, because quite frankly, there's never enough, right? We recognize also that we are not going to arrest our way to a completely safe community. So what do we have to do? We have to ensure that we have an engaged and informed community that we meet with and talk with on a regular basis. We have to employ technologies that are appropriate, that help us really be a force multiplier. And we have to ensure that we have modern recruitment and retention strategies so that we can hire new officers, bring them in and retain them. The CEO has said time and again that we want to be the best paid and best trained policing agency in the state of Georgia, as well as the Southeast, and I think we are certainly there. But without any further introduction, I would like to have Chief Ramos kind of walk through a few slides that have been presented, or that have been prepared, and just kind of hit some high points on what's going on, and then we'll get into the meat of the conversation. Chief.
Good afternoon. Well, actually, it's evening. Good evening, everyone. And I apologize. We've had some computer issues, so I'm just going to read off the slides in my hand. But one of the things that I want to say is that the DeKalb County Police Department, while we do know that our primary job is to protect and serve, we really are proud to say that we focus on a lot of community outreach and engagement. So what I'd like to do is I want to talk a little bit about that in saying that each precinct, we have 4 precincts in DeKalb County. You're currently in the South Precinct. You have Tucker Precinct, North Central Precinct, and East Precinct. And all of the precincts are, I'm not going to say obligated, but yeah, they've been obligated to do all of these. So when I speak about them, just know that they're happening in every precinct. So every month we have Coffee with a Cop at each of our precincts. We have monthly clergy meetings. We understand the importance of our clergy and working together with our faith-based organizations. We have community meetings, which is a virtual meeting, which everybody here can log into and get information about what's happening in your area. If you have questions or concerns, that is the time that you can get answers to any questions. So that is monthly. No matter where you reside, there will be a meeting occurring that month. We also have Majors Night Out. We want our precinct commanders to actually go out and pound the pavement. We don't want them behind the desk. So once a month, our majors will be out, and they'll be in the area that is causing them a little concern, and they want to make sure they're knocking on doors, talking to people, and letting them know that they're out there to assist them in any way. So we really believe in that personal, hands-on approach. Also, right now, we have a survival swim program. Our PAL unit, which is not in the building at this moment, they are a little frustrated with the drownings that we've had in the area. As you know, our children don't know how to swim, so they partnered with the Y, and they have an 8-week swim program where they're taking kids 15 at a time to learn how to swim. Usually, that's not something law enforcement does, but we believe in doing things that are needed, not necessarily that fall within police department. Other thing we have is career development program. We have a 4-month program. We take kids between 13 and 17, and we teach them about careers. We teach them about life, social skills, etiquette, how to balance their budget. We prepare them to move forward. We have community service aides. Community service aides, if you have not seen them, they wear bright yellow. Currently, they are only in the East Precinct, and the reason we brought them, and it'll tie into some of our response times, is to really be able to spend time with the community. So what they do is low-level crimes, meaning if you have something that does not necessarily require a police officer, one of the CSAs can come and they can help you. They can help you file reports. They look into abandoned vehicles. They do reports about stolen bikes, stolen phones. Somebody burglarizes your home. They can come in and make a report and take fingerprints. So they are freeing up our officers so that the officers can have a better response time for you guys, the public. We also do Movie with a Cop. So quarterly, we take a group of high school, whether it's middle school, high school, and we take them to do movies. And it's not just a movie. It'll be a movie that's educational. And then while we bring them, they have the Entertainment Commission that comes out, sponsors the event, and talks to them about career in film. So everything that we do has an educational component to it. We also have the Gaming with a Cop, where we sponsor 15 kids. They come out and they play games with our officers. That is so that they can develop a relationship with the officers so that when they need them, they're there. So that's just some of our community outreach that we're doing. Talk a little bit about recruitment, and I'm trying to go through this a little quicker. You'll start seeing billboards throughout not only DeKalb County, but in the neighboring agencies. We want to recruit not only certified officers, but we want to recruit brand new officers, people from the community that are as committed to the community as we are. So we have job fairs, local and regional. And I will say, I guess there were some concerns, but we've had recent salary increases to help us with retaining our officers. Everybody knows that's a challenge. So currently, non-certified officers are being hired at $55,000. To put that into perspective, about a year and a half ago, they were starting at $42,000. So that's a big jump in salary. Certified officers are starting at $59,000, and they're also getting sign-on bonuses. So we're hoping that that helps us with our numbers, and we have been seeing an increase in our numbers. We're just hoping that it continues. And so I guess one of the questions is, do we see the improvements? So yes, we've seen a 75% increase in applications, and sometimes you may not see 75% increase in hiring is because we don't want to lower our standards. So just because they apply does not mean that they're a good fit for us. So we want to make sure we keep our standards high so that we can service DeKalb County the best that we can. I'm going to allow the technology portion to go over to Flood. He's our expert at that, and I'm just going to talk about some of the things that we're looking to do in our future initiatives, which is we're looking to increase that number of CSAs. Currently, we only have 4. Our goal is to have 4 at every precinct so that you can see them out there. If you see them, they're bright yellow. It says Community Service Aid in the back. Please just stop and say hello. They are the ones that want to engage with you, want to talk you through what they do and how they can help you. Mobile precincts will be forthcoming. We only have 1, but our goal is to have 4. A mobile precinct will be a small van that we will pull into any community that is experiencing high level of crime. And what we'll do is we're going to set up shop. Sometimes people say, well, I want a precinct in my community. Well, sometimes that's a little harder than you think, but now we can just drive into your community and we can stay there all week if we have to, and we'll just work out of there so that you'll know where to reach us, and so will the criminals. So that mobile precinct is going to be a big deal for us when we get it. We're hoping to have it within the next 6 months. It's been in production for about a year now, thanks to COVID. We also have the public safety support assistants. They are also hired to free up our officers. So now you may have officers in administrative positions. We want our officers in the street. So any positions that have been identified that we don't necessarily need an officer, we are replacing with a PSSA. Why? We need more officers in the street, so we're getting creative in doing that. And so if Charles Flood can talk a little bit just about technology, talk about the 2 programs that we're currently running so people can get a better understanding.
Good evening, everybody. I've been in law enforcement for 26 years now, and I have seen transitions and improvements and advancements in technology that help to leverage the tools that we have. And I am very excited now with our new technology platform we have, where we're integrating video from businesses and residences. I encourage everybody to look at the poster in the back with the QR code. Scan your phone and get that QR code to take you to our new website, Connect DeKalb. With that, you'll have 2 options. Residents, I encourage you to register your cameras at your location. All that means is that when you register it, you're telling us that you have a camera there, and so if we need it, we will request for that video footage. Without you registering, we may not know that that resource is there to help our investigators. Sometimes what you don't know can kill you. So we like to know that, and we like to see that. The second option you have, we encourage businesses, is to integrate your existing camera systems. By integration, I mean when you go to that website, you'll have some options to shop, purchase a device. That'll be shipped right to you from the company that we're working with, and then they'll walk you through connecting your existing camera system. Once that's connected, then we will have an additional option to view those cameras live. That allows us to look at those in the case of a hot call for officer safety, intelligence, and it also allows us to review recorded video remotely. So if we need to solve a case, we can get that video quicker instead of waiting for the business owner to provide it, and it helps us to act in a more expeditious manner. I can tell you that this platform has already been used to assist with solving crimes in a timely manner, and I'm very excited about it. I personally continue to go out and engage with the businesses and encourage them to join. If you know someone who's a business owner, I highly recommend that you get with them and tell them how important this program is. Again, if you scan the QR code in the back and it takes you to the site, it'll explain all the details about the program. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to meet me after the meeting, and I'll be happy to elaborate in any way.
Can you just very quickly talk about the license plate readers, what they are and what they're not? Because I think there seems to be a little bit of confusion as to what those things are.
Yes, ma'am. We have license plate readers deployed throughout the community. Currently, our department has access to about 335 license plate reader cameras within the county itself. Just over 3,000 nationwide that we can access for intelligence, and we have 57 that we personally own as a department. Those readers will take images of passing vehicles, compare them against databases such as the law enforcement databases to see if that vehicle or the owner is related to or involved in a crime that's known. If it is, then email alerts are automatically sent out to all police officers in the department. So if an officer's in the proximity, he can act on that, and that has been used incredibly to be proactive. Officers need knowledge. Knowledge is power, and that gives them the knowledge that we would not otherwise have without that device.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would just like to say that I believe increasingly, I want you all to understand what we're doing in the space of technology, because technology is going to be a major factor as we move forward in crime prevention. I'm sure when the QR code is scanned in the back, it will carry you directly to the website. But Chief Ramos, what is the Connect DeKalb actual URL for people who may wish to visit even as they're sitting here, so that those who do not have access at this time to the QR code can visit the website and register?
I'm sorry, but I usually just scan it. And so we do have these cards in the back. We can provide it for you. Do you happen to have it, Flood?
I know it.
Okay, go for it.
It's connectdekalbcounty.org. I'm sorry. Trying to be loud. It is connectdekalbcounty.org.
And let me say that currently we have 854 registered cameras and 441 integrated cameras. It only works if you participate. Later this evening, we did receive a question concerning security and safety as it relates to registering. But across the United States, you are seeing a huge increase in the use of technology. And honestly, even real-time monitoring of areas that have high incidents of crime and violence. And when consent is given, and I repeat, when consent is given, we do have the ability and capacity to view in real time. So many of you may be familiar with our recently passed gas and convenience store legislation, where we are now requiring, to help keep you safe, mandatory video surveillance, 24 hours a day, 24 frames per minute, and infrared night vision. We require that those cameras, the footage is stored for a minimum of 60 days, and that if there is an incident of crime or violence, that it is turned over within 72 hours to our authorities, because we want to do everything within our capacity to diminish crime, because currently violent crime here in DeKalb County, one of our number one place of incident happens to be our gas and service stations. Now also, because I like to do the education thing, I want to be very clear, and Chief Ramos, I would ask that you speak about this, because overall in DeKalb County, crime is down. But what we have seen is more of an elevation in violent crime. And I do not believe that that's changed, and those are going to be your murders, your aggravated assaults, your rape, as well as your robberies. And can you talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing there?
I will say, and I'm going to let Assistant Chief Pedrick elaborate a little bit more, is that while crime is high, it has been consistent through the several last years. So when people say crime is high, we're going to say that the numbers are high, yes, but have we seen an increase from year to year? The answer to that is no. So I just want to clarify that, and I want Assistant Chief Pedrick to talk a little bit about the type of crimes that we're seeing and who are these victims and suspects that are committing them.
Yes, thank you. So as far as the crime trends, they are staying consistent, which compared to other metro area agencies, we consider that to be a gain for us, considering the staffing levels and issues in law enforcement and communities. So we've been able to maintain a consistent presence and a force against that crime. Some of the crimes that we're seeing that perpetuate the violence are the aggravated assaults, the shootings, and as we talked about earlier, it deals with the inability to have successful conflict resolution. So that's something that we need to work on as a community. It is not a high level of specific targeted crime. The victims and suspects oftentimes know each other, and they just have an inability to resolve conflict without resulting in violence. So I think that's an area that we need to work on as a community to address conflict resolution, if that answers the question.
I think one of the concerns was, should we be scared? Are these stranger-on-stranger crimes? And I think one of the important things to note is that most of these victims know who is shooting them or who is stabbing them. A large number of them are domestic. So we do have some, you may be at a gas station, you get into an argument with someone, rather than walking away, somebody takes a gun out and shoots, but most of this has been people engaging in risky behavior. So the answer to that is crime occurring in DeKalb County? Absolutely. Is it that we should be in fear? No. But when you see things, just walk away. I think if I could say one word is that we, not just officers, but as human beings, we need to learn to de-escalate situations and learn when to walk away rather than engaging with people. Nowadays, something as simple as cutting someone off could have someone shooting a gun at you simply because their anger is not manageable. And we've had several of those cases as well.
And following the order of the program, I believe at this point, would Chief Patrick be next in line?
Unless Hughes has anything on community crime update.
Okay, and I will defer first to Chief Hughes in the event he has an update, I believe, on community crime.
I'll refer to the questions that were sent. Is that what we're doing?
I would appreciate it because there's so many that I'd like to make it through them, so absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. So one of the questions that we received was, what is being done to improve police response times? And I just wanted to add that the national average anywhere for police response time is 3 to 15 minutes for a major city. However, in DeKalb County, we're averaging about 8.5 minutes for response time. So we respond to calls based on priority. When calls come in, we have to triage them. If there is someone that's been shot or injured in a car accident, that's going to take precedent over a dispute call where there's no violence or no threat of violence taking place. So when calls come in, they're triaged based on priority, and while these times we do measure them, we try to get to every call as quickly as possible.
I would like to add that he said we triaged them, and while there's no one here representing E911, when E911 gets a call, dispatchers, they process the call, and they will dispatch them to the officer. So sometimes we may say, well, we got there 5 minutes after we were dispatched. We don't really know that you were waiting for an hour or 30 minutes. E911 will dispatch officers when they become available. And I will say that in order to expedite that, we are working on a program where for certain type of calls, civilians will be able to now go on their computer or on their phone and make their own report. That is a process. We're hoping to have that done within the next 3 to 4 months, and then we'll advertise it and we'll promote it at our meetings so that people know they can do their own reports. Only certain types of report, but you'll be able to do those on phones, and we're hoping that will alleviate some of the times that you're waiting on calls for our officers to arrive.
And I would also like to add, because of course we receive as commissioners reports from all of our major departments. And I hate to put folk on spot, but I want people to understand the magnitude of what we deal with in DeKalb. Chief Ramos or anyone on the panel, feel free to join in. Can you tell us the amount of calls we receive on a monthly basis to 911?
The calls that E911 get will be different than the ones police have because they also do calls for fire. But I will tell you that the police respond to an average about 4,200 calls a week. A week. So times that, times 4, and that's what you'll have on an average. So it varies anywhere between 3,800 and 4,500 calls a week.
And I wanted you all to hear that because one of the things that does affect response time is calls that are not 911 calls. We do have a call line for individuals who wish to call us if it is a nonviolent crime. And I want you all to know that because if you dial 911 because you have literally a cat in a tree, then that goes into queue. And we have to adjudicate you in the same way that we do an individual who is facing a violent incident at that moment. So I do want to make sure that everyone here has the non-violent number for non-emergency calls. I want us to take out our phones and we are going to put in them this evening the non-emergency number for DeKalb County. And if you have a non-emergency, do not call 911. You should be dialing 678-937-2852. Non-emergency calls should go to 678-937-2852. And this will help us tremendously.
If you don't mind, I'm going to add, and I would like for everybody to take these cards in the back. Something that we have not done is you usually get a generic email. If you look at this card on the back, you will have the email directly to all of your precinct commanders and phone numbers. So we're not trying to run from it. So if it's not an emergency and you don't necessarily need to see the police, you can shoot an email to your precinct commander and they can get back to you the next day. So this information is in the back. I see they're starting to make their way around, but if you don't have one, get one. So like I said, on the back here, you have all of the information that you need. Your best resource is your precinct commander. That's why I'm here, but I brought my staff with me. But realistically, the precinct commander should be your best friends. So when they're going out there to the Majors Night Out, go out and meet your precinct commander. When they're having that community meeting, jump on that Zoom call. That's where you're gonna meet the officers that patrol your area. When you make that face, when you make that personal connection, you can get information. You won't have to wait for one of these meetings. You can get the information when you need it, which is what we would like for you to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Ramos. I do want to appreciate Chief Ramos and the precinct commanders because every time we might get an email from some of y'all asking for a deeper look at an area, an issue. It could be an abandoned house. It could be someone walking the streets that might be having a mental health crisis. They are always available, and so please do take advantage of the opportunity to meet your precinct commander because they really are true public servants. Since we were talking about emergency numbers, I wanted also to make sure everyone is aware of the new 988 number. That is for suicide and mental health crisis. A lifeline available 24 hours a day, English and Spanish right now, as well as text messaging 988. If there is someone that you know, whether it's yourself or witnessing that is having a mental health crisis, you can call that number and seek help. We also, Chief Ramos didn't mention it, but we have a mental health crisis response team, and maybe she can share a little bit about that as well. But between 988 and 911, if you call or text, and you can text 911, by the way, so you think about if you call and you might be on hold, try also texting because that is a way for them to receive messages. So again, if you know of someone or you're witnessing a mental health crisis, you can call 988 or 911 and just tell the operator that someone is having a mental health crisis. Please send out the crisis response unit because they are the trained clinicians, officers, field teams that are there to be there to help. Not with a gun, but with an open arm, an open hand, and the clinical expertise to address the situation. Chief Ramos, do you want to mention the crisis response?
Yes,
unit?
thank you for that. That was going to be our question number 4, so we're just going to jump ahead. So we've always had a mobile crisis unit. It's been one officer and a clinician. We understand that times are changing, so we have increased that number to 4 officers and a supervisor, and they ride along with a clinician. So when they show up at the person's house or the person's call, they have a clinician with them. So not only do you have the law enforcement there to make sure the clinician is safe and that everyone on the scene is safe, but you have someone who is trained to handle the situation to the best of their ability. And so they're working from about 9 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week, where maybe 6 months ago, we were having them 8 hours a shift and only 1 officer. So we understand that times are changing, and we understand that we have to change with them. So that's something that we've done to really improve with the mobile crisis unit. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this point, Chief Hughes, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Unless you would like me to go to the next question?
I do believe that we should, and I also believe there is a second non-emergency number that you wanted to share.
Yes, ma'am. So also a number is 404-294-2911. 404-294-2911. And one of the other questions that we receive is, what is being done to prevent crime? Now, preventing crime is something that is going to take a collaborative effort, of course, and our part as the police department, some of the things that we're doing is educating the community. Chief Ramos mentioned earlier the various platforms that we have where we share information. We believe that education is one of the best ways that we can prevent crime. We try to encourage citizens to not leave valuables in the car, to have their house well lit at night, things of that nature, neighborhood watch programs, things like that. Once we educate the community of the resources that are available and the things that they can do to help us, those are some of the things that really are effective in preventing crime. And another thing, we just recently introduced an overtime initiative where officers are getting paid a little bit more now to work overtime. This encourages officers to come in sometimes on their off days to add to the manpower. Officer presence is one of the greatest deterrents we have. When we can have an officer visible on the street, on the corners, that's a great deterrent to crime. So those are some of the things that we're doing to help prevent crime.
Can you also talk about the summer initiative that we're doing with the NET team, please?
Yes, so Chief Ramos approved us to collaborate all of our NET teams. Each precinct had a NET team, and NET stands for Neighborhood Enforcement Team. So what we decided to do this year was to combine all of those teams into one unit to just kind of expand that manpower. And what they do is these hot spots, these areas that have been plagued with crime, traditionally during the summer months, this team now collectively, along with other entities and other units in the county, they go out and target those areas. And I can say to date, they've been in existence probably close to 4 weeks, and they've had over 40 felony arrests. They've recovered over 45 firearms, and they've been real effective. So we're putting them out there. If there's an issue, email the precinct. They will then be in touch with the NET team, and we'll make sure that they are visible and that they are attacking whatever issues you have.
And then I also want to point out, if they don't mind standing, the community policing unit in the back, please. So they have, did they leave?
No,
oh, there they are. So you will know who they are by the blue shirts. And so we understand that it's not only just about crime, it's about really interacting with people before the crime hits. So our community policing unit, they go out, they work with the homeless, they go into communities and just speak with the children, they're in the schools, they are everywhere and anywhere. So we kind of gave them the blue shirts just so that we could recognize who they are when they're out there, but we understand that it's not only about proactive work, but once again, just emphasizing on community. You guys can sit down, thank you so much.
And let me say, I join the chorus in saying that one of the biggest deterrents to crime is the presence of police. The mobile units that we are deploying into the community is going to be instrumental. It is time that they see our faces, that they know we're present. Also, Chief Ramos, and then we're going to keep on down the line because I want to pull in our fire chief and others, but I'd like to use Belvedere as a case study. In many instances, we don't know what you're experiencing unless we're told. We received calls concerning a gas station, or actually service station. I believe the gas pumps had already been removed by the corporate office because of the criminal activity. And we did everything. We ended with a surveillance team that went in, and we arrested, I believe, one of the store workers, as well as multiple individuals that were engaging in prostitution and drugs. So we will come into the community. We simply need to know what is going on. But I commend us, and also because there had been some concerns expressed around mental health. And how do we separate mental health from criminal activity? Let me say that it is an ongoing training that takes place, and I do want to acknowledge Senator John Ossoff, who received dollars to be utilized by our local authorities to enhance training. Because what we're seeing in terms of law enforcement is no different than education. We are dealing with issues that, honestly, police officers may not have been initially trained to combat. But more and more, they must understand and treat mental health in a different way. That said, at this time, we are going to move into the presentation for fire and safety update from our Chief Fulham.
Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. It's a long day. It's been a long day. Good afternoon. Once again, my name is Darnell Fulham, and I am the fire chief. First off, I'd just like to say thank you to Commissioner Cochran-Johnson and to Commissioner Terry for having me here this evening. Oftentimes, folks may not think about the fire department when it comes to crime prevention, but directly, we are impacted because oftentimes, if not always, our fire units are responding to the unfortunate aftermath when a crime does take place and there is an injury that has occurred. But indirectly, our firefighters are part of the community and are the eyes and ears as well when they're out there, and when they may witness either a crime or when they're entering someone's home and they may see a situation that needs to be reported to the police officers. We also have an Explorer program that runs year-round, but during the summer for about 2 weeks. Students who are interested in the fire service or just learning leadership skills can join our Explorer program. It's been very successful in preparing students, once again, not only for the fire service, but many of them go on to college or to the military after being in our program. We are hiring as well. The starting pay for firefighters right now is $51,000. We saw similar increases as the police department, and so it's a great opportunity for somebody who's looking for a way to serve the community. 18 years old, high school or GED, and not have had a felony in the last 10 years, that's the starting point, that's the minimum, and we are hiring right now. I also wanted to talk very quickly, we were talking about 911, and I thought it was important to mention, as Chief Ramos said, about the number of calls that go through the 911 service. For fire, it's about 2,500 calls a week that are going through 911 that either fire or EMS is responding to. And one area that we often find when somebody calls 911 and they may be placed on hold because of the peak times is that they will hang up. And it's important to note that if you hang up, then you're at the back of the queue, you're at the back of the line, so don't hang up. But another situation that we deal with today is that everybody has one of these, has a cell phone. So there's oftentimes, if not always, duplicated calls to 911 for the same incident. And so each one of those calls do have to be answered. I'm not going to tell you not to call because you may be the only one who calls, but it's important to note that oftentimes, especially like today where we've had storms go through, there are hundreds and hundreds of calls made, and many of those are duplicates. The last item I'll just mention very quickly, we're very proud of the fact that we are replacing our fire stations for those that may live in the Columbus, Peachtree area. We just opened a brand new fire station there. I truly believe that when we place these type of buildings in a community, it's a commitment of the county. I hope that that will be a spur for growth in that area, but it's also a location that the community can come and have meetings, community meetings if you would like. And fire stations are also safe havens. So when there is a situation that somebody needs help, they can always come to the fire station. If we're not there, there is a doorbell that you can ring that will go to 911. Obviously, if they're on a call, they're not going to be in the station. But thank you once again, Commissioner, for being here. We're very proud of our service. One other item I'll just mention, it's a little different, but very proud of the fact that your fire service that we have here, we are an ISO 2, which means we are ISO 1 is the top, ISO 10 is the bottom. We're one of the few fire departments, 3% in the nation, that have that rating. So very proud of the service we provide to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that update, and thank you also for the service, because many times we speak of the issue, but we don't talk about the level of service that many individuals across the board in DeKalb provide that are actually recognized not only locally but on a national level. At this point, I would like to shift over to youth violence and programming with Chief Allen. Also, Chief Allen and Chief Ramos, at some point this evening, I would like us to speak as to the age of perpetrators and what we're seeing in the community. I personally believe that as it relates to violence, there is a major economic factor as well. We often talk about the issue, but we do not address the underlying causes. So in America, we have to talk about economics, we have to talk about conflict resolution. And at this time, I will turn it over to you to talk about youth violence and youth programming.
Yes, Commissioner, thank you. Again, I'm Chief DeAndre Allen. I'm with the DeKalb County Juvenile Court Probation Department. And I like that you did mention that it's underlying issues that go on that steers and it shows our youth that we care. You know, those underlying issues that we deal with. We're actually working with Kate's Club Grief Group right now on a pioneer program. And what it is to disrupt the pipeline to prison. So what we're looking at doing is, pulling back those layers of trauma and grief. Our youth oftentimes don't know how to grieve properly, and we have to teach them how to do that. So with Kate's Club, I know we all heard the saying, hurt people hurt people. So that's what we want to prevent. So with Kate's Club, this collaboration, and I'll use a direct quote from our Chief Judge Elamine. She said, one of the best ways to rehabilitate our youth is to help them identify, voice, and then heal. So we want to be a part of that process through this pioneer program, and we actually had a meeting earlier today that I'm thankful to say that we're getting the ball rolling, and it should be rolled out this year. But I do want to talk about the programs we do have ongoing. One of our programs is and I wish I had the slides up, but it's okay. We
can get those for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. It's pretty tiny, but hopefully y'all can follow along with me. But if you do need any extra information or anything, I do have two supervisors from our court right here. They have pamphlets. They have this same slide right here for you to be able to view. But I'll talk about our CHIN's informal program. CHINS means Children in Need of Services. These are typically our status offenses, such as truancies, runaways, violation of curfew. And I know we're at a violence town hall, so one might ask, what does violation of curfew have to do with violence? Well, it's a direct correlation because we often say you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And often that means it was just one coincidence, an unfortunate situation that we had no control over. But with our youth and them being out past curfew, it's not a coincidence. They're really at the wrong place at the wrong time. So as parents, as community leaders and everything, we have to address those issues. And we do that through our CHINS program. So it's informal. All parents have to do is come up to the courthouse, speak to our intake department, file a complaint if they're dealing with truancy, a runaway, a youth that's not coming in with curfew. But I will say we do encourage family participation as well. So it's not a drop off the kid type of program or anything like that. We work with the families. We have a class which has 2 tiers. The first one is addressing the youth. We help them with conflict resolution, skill building, decision making. And the second tier of the program is for the parents. So we offer parenting classes at the courthouse as well, which helps build that bond. It helps stabilize the home and things of that sort. We offer this program for up to 90 days of informal supervision. So with that supervision, we go into the schools, we review school records, including attendance, grades. We're meeting with the families. We're meeting with school counselors. I have 24 probation officers, and we're in the schools. So a lot of times, our community, they don't know that the probation is in the schools as well as the school resource officers. So we operate separately. And we're in there trying to deter crimes from happening. So if we see behaviors in the schools that might lead to crime or it might get violent or anything, our probation officers are in there to deter those kids, to pull them to the side, have a mentorship conversation with them, and prevent it from coming down to the court. We don't want to see kids coming through the court for delinquent acts or anything like that. We want to see kids coming through the court through our programs to graduate out looking for resources. So that's what we want to do at the court, provide resources. If we can go to the next slide. Okay, so I'll talk about, we have formal probation programs as well, which include our ART program and our Project Egress. ART is our anger replacement training. So these have a focus area of defining anger and identifying triggers. I actually sat through one of these classes and I just listened to the youth and they were able to identify their triggers. So they know what's going on, what triggers them, what triggers you to act out. They can voice and tell us what's going on, but we have to show them how to react to those the proper way. Oftentimes we see things, whether it's on TV, in the home, in the school, of how people react to certain things. And as youth, sometimes they imitate those actions. They might not be the best actions, but they imitate those. They might look up to someone in the school who's so-called big and bad, and they want to be that person. That's just the nature of what it is when we go through childhood, teens, going through school and everything like that. So we try to prevent that as well. We have Project Egress. This is a focus on deterring youth from criminal street gangs and criminal acts. I remember there was a question asked and was there any resource to deter youth from criminal street gangs? Yes, we have Project Egress, which does that. It also helps the youth with avoiding labeling. So oftentimes they come through the courthouse and they leave out with the mindset, oh, I'm a criminal or I have a record and things like that. We have classes at our courthouse that's preventing them from leaving with that thought process. We have different facilitators that work with them, and again, they do a lot of work with crime prevention, defining anger, and those triggers. All of the programs that I mentioned, they're done in clusters, so we do separate the females from the males during these programs, but they are offered to both females and males. We also have programs directly involved for females. One is our Smart Girls program, which comes out to be strong, motivated, achieving, responsible, trend-setting girls. That has a direct focus it has a focus on creating a direct plan for our female offenders, non-offenders, and things of that sort. So with these, we open up umbrella services. So we don't only just work at the court. We work with the community providers. We work outside of just the DeKalb community. Anything we can do to bring resources into DeKalb and provide our youth with the same resources that other counties get, or extensive, whether it has funding to be involved or anything like that, we provide and work to find those resources. We have our Crown program, which over the summer we just ran, and it focused on violence prevention, preventing teen domestic violence, and identifying positive role models. So a lot of times we don't have those positive role models. I'm from Detroit, Michigan originally, so I know growing up I didn't have a lot of positive role models, and I didn't have a lot of resources to find them. In DeKalb, we have those resources. So if it's anything that we are looking for our families, our youth, anything we're struggling with, come down to the courthouse. We have programs for a lot of these things. And last, I just want to mention, we have probation officers who are involved daily in the schools, as I mentioned. They're proactive. They're doing daily interventions with our youth. They're addressing behaviors before they escalate. I currently have 5 officers who are certified law enforcement officers. I got to the court this past November. So from November to now, we've either hired or sent people through the academy. I have 5, and I have another one that's graduating tomorrow. So with us already being in the schools, I plan on using that as another resource of safety in the schools as well. So we're there again to prevent and deter our kids from committing crimes, but we're also there to provide safety for those schools as well. And I look to working with the school board and the new superintendent as well to get that into the schools as far as our certified officers. If anyone needs any information, again, we have Supervisor Baker right here, Supervisor Burley in the back, and we do have this same slide, our program matrix, and all of our programs. Oh, last, I do want to address, it was another question, where can I find a comprehensive list of youth programs that are designed to provide opportunities and activities alternative to gangs, crime, and drugs? DeKalb County, DeKalbJuvenileCourt.com. So if you go to DeKalbJuvenileCourt.com and look at our grants and programs unit, it has a list of our programs. Also, if you go to DeKalbCountyGA.gov/youth services, it provides a similar list in our resources that we do have for DeKalb County. Sorry, I know I probably took up a lot more time than what I was allocated, but just wanted to put those resources out to our community because a lot of times we don't know the resources that we do have. Thank you.
Absolutely, and let me say, as it relates to crime and violence, what we see in America is that death by guns has replaced what was the #1 cause for homicide, and previously that had been car accidents. So more young people between the ages of 3 and 18 die as a result of gun violence than they do car accidents in America. And there's something wrong with that. I want to commend all the departments. For those of you who are watching who have young people, it's really important that we give them constructive activities to engage in. I can say, I'm not sure if there are individuals here tonight who work with the Police Athletic League, but PAL actually runs, once it was called Midnight Basketball, but we now call it Basketball After Dark. And I have stopped in numerous times. I, along with others, other commissioners, we fund the program. And on average, we have 150 to 200 plus young people that come out nightly. And while they're there, it's not just a good time. We also bring in guest speakers to talk to them, to reinforce social values, positive affirmations, and we provide them mentoring on an ongoing basis because we have many homes that may have single parents and they need the wraparound support. So this is not just a DeKalb County issue. When we see violence in the community, this is a community issue. We have to know our neighbors. We have to offer support when we see that there is a need. We have to pick up the phone, and we have to call people who have the capacity and the care to help change what we see. So let's be very clear. One of the things that was discussed here with the juveniles, and thank you so much for bringing that out, Chief Allen, is trauma. Young people do not understand that they have experienced trauma. They do not know how to compartmentalize and explain what they endure. And I can remember, because of my work in the DeKalb County school system, when I was told that there were children who had special classes because they suffered from PTSD. Now, me, being my age, I had only heard of post-traumatic stress disorder associated with veterans who had fought in wars. But we have young people who live in homes that are so volatile, their environment, that they suffer from the same condition as people who have fought a war. So we have to look at ourselves as well, because this is far deeper than the ability to legislate morality and decency. With that said, we're going to go directly into the questions. And one of the first questions, and we get this all the time, and I will answer, but everyone here, feel free to join in if you have anything to add. This question asks, is it possible for the county to assist neighborhood in paying for flock cameras? Let me say that DeKalb, when it comes to being fair and equitable, we're like an algebra equation. What you do to the left, you do to the right. We don't have the ability to pay for flock cameras. There are over 6,000 communities in DeKalb County, and that doesn't go into the amount of homes. It's just an expense that we can't afford, but I do believe, Chief Ramos, that we do offer flock cameras through a partnership at a reduced cost. And I also encourage you, communities who may be facing violence and criminal activity, to consider utilizing your HOA if you have one. If you don't, come together. Again, 2 words, come together. Determine the cost, assess yourselves, and do what's necessary if you need to install license plate readers as well as cameras at your points of entry and exit, because that's one of the things that we have done in our community, and it has been invaluable in helping local officers when we have had break-ins or we have had people come in and out of our community. Now, thankful for us, we only have one way in and one way out. Some of you have multiple points of entry and exit. But these are just things because we have to think differently about how we go about addressing this. And Chief Ramos, can you or anyone here speak to a diminished cost that's associated with cameras?
I don't know about diminished, but I know I'm going to allow Sergeant Flood talk about the price on the camera that they would give to anyone. And we actually provide information, but we're not here to promote any company. But we can tell you what we pay for them, which would be what you would pay for them.
Yes, they've recently had some price changes that we've seen. There's a cost for the camera up front. I don't know of any reduced cost. I will investigate that. I can call my contact right away, and I'll find that out and get it to the chief so she can pass it on if there is. So you'll be made aware of that as soon as possible if that's out there for you. But the cameras now cost, I believe, $2,500 per camera, and that includes maintenance, warranty, and the annual fee for that.
For the year.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. And I'm sorry. And for each camera, there's an installation one-time fee that goes with that, and I believe that is still currently $750. With that $750, they come out, they do a survey, make sure the camera will operate properly, and then make sure it's put in the right place so it's not a hazard to traffic or anything else in the community, and put that in for you.
And if we can just add that if your community purchases their own flock cameras, you still have to be the one to give us access so that we can get the alerts. It's not something that we automatically take over. So people are always concerned about privacy. You guys control whatever it is that you do as long as it relates to flock, cameras, anything of that nature. You have to give us permission before we can access any information. I just wanted to clarify that.
And let me also say that one of the major costs is not the equipment, but the storage. Oftentimes, we have communities that say, you know, we want cameras at our entry. We've had a lot of things happen, but because of the technology that's required, in many instances, it is not as easy as us just coming out mounting a camera. It takes a lot of infrastructure. And I know that in our community, when we installed our cameras initially, we spent over $5,000 for that entryway, for the readers. And we have a neighbor who is responsible for maintaining the footage. And if we have an incident, then he is notified and he pulls the activity from the cameras that we've installed.
And Commissioner Cochran-Johnson, COO Williams just reminded me that while your point is very well taken, that we can't put a camera in every single neighborhood, every single street, the Board of Commissioners and the administration are focused right now on the potential to install more cameras across DeKalb County in the areas that have been assessed by the police department of where we need to fill gaps. And I believe Mr. Williams could maybe speak a little bit more about sort of how that process is going, because we're analyzing areas, and then as the chief said, making sure that they can go in the right location, solar powered, things like that. But you want to say anything else about that, Zach?
Well, Commissioner Terry, I think you really hit the nail on the head. The discussion at a board meeting, I want to say in the last month or so, was requesting that we go out as staff, ensure that we evaluate where it's the most appropriate place to place these flock cameras. So the police department has began, and a lot of the work they had done, but they began in earnest looking throughout the county for these different areas, kind of collectors, places where people may congregate, not so much individual communities, but where we will introduce more flock cameras. And I think that's part of a budget request that the board would be funding once we present the plan. So it doesn't get directly into communities so much, but it does get into areas, and it will definitely enhance public safety.
All right, and so we got several questions here. Thank you all so much for sending in these cards. Okay, here's one. I'm familiar with this issue. So the question says, what should we do for the refugee community to educate, provide language access? They mentioned Swahili and for other East African languages. Chief Ramos, do you want to talk about like language line, or what are other aspects we do for the immigrant community?
Well, for the police department, well, we have a lot of different languages, but if we don't have an officer that speaks the language, we have a translation line. So all we have to do is call the number, tell them what language we need assistance with, and they will help us translate with the person on the actual line. So we will never say we don't know, we can't understand. We just call the translation line, and they will help us out to speak any language. There's a slew of languages, probably some that we can't even pronounce, that they're able to translate from that hotline for us.
Oh, yeah, does he want to? Oh, yeah, please stand up. Okay, please. Yes.
The purpose of my question was to know the kids, use the gun, and we have many problems now in Blackstone. But the parents need to be involved. Like they say, we need to have the family participation. For the family participation, we see the adult person. The adult person more than speak Swahili and they speak other African language. The problem is not to call only, but the problem is to be educated or engage. We have that file, we have that resource where everything is in English or in Spanish. We can meet the people, but we need to have that resource, that education, that communication go through the community. Because for me, we have the level of community, but we have the grade in the community. We have the people who are educated. They know to speak English, they know to speak French, and everything. We have other people, they are in community. The refugee people, they don't know English, they don't know French, they know only Swahili and other African language. Now, the question was to know how we can go down to them. How we can go down to them, meet them in the community, meet them in the apartment.
Well, I'll take that, and I'll say that if there is an HOA and you guys would like to coordinate a meeting, we can do that, but when you say how do we get into the apartments, now we're crossing lines into privacy again, so we're not knocking on people's doors and telling them what their problems are. So if you host a meeting in your community, let us know what languages we need to have representation. We will do our best to make that happen. So we have to bring them into the room. We can't always go into people's homes when they're not committing any crimes. So that's where the privacy comes in at. But if you host a meeting and invite us, we'll go and we'll bring whoever we need to bring to make sure that we translate. If you're in the South Precinct, on the back of one of these cards, this one here, the contact information is for your public education specialist. So Ms. Tate, please stand up. Ms. Paula Tate is a public education specialist for the South Precinct. We have one in every precinct. If you have an HOA meeting and you want the police there, she's the one to call. If you have questions about something and you don't know, she's the one that call. If it's not a police-related matter, but it involves the police or you want them involved, you can call Ms. Tate. She is a great liaison between the community and the police department, and we have one at each precinct. So on the back of this card, you will find the contact information for your public education specialist if it's not Ms. Tate.
And let me say, you know, as I sit here, I'm always looking for solutions, and I want to say to you, you're the key to your community. You. and I say that because I fund a program for an organization called the Black Man Lab. Attorney Mawali Davis is one of the organizers. He, along with Kappa Alpha Alpha chapter of Omega Psi Phi and the 100 Black Men of DeKalb, at least 3 to 4 times annually, we literally, and I say we, until they send me back, I'm right there with them. We literally go to Wesley Club apartments and some of the worst apartment and extended stay living facilities in DeKalb County. And we knock on doors. We do this, not the police, but these are people like you. Now, if we were to encounter individuals and we have a language barrier, that's why we need to enlist you right now. Because I can't, let's be clear here. This takes a collaborative effort. So perhaps we need to organize a program that will enlist our Burmese, our Somalian, our Ethiopian, all our African diaspora, all of our different communities that has a leader like you who's responsible for working with us on the information, and then we support you in getting it back to the community. So once we're done here tonight, you see me and we'll have that conversation, because what we're looking for here is opportunities. And even if we go into the community independent of having you, we may not be successful. So you're the key to helping us solve that problem in your community.
Good evening again. I will say, to answer your question, I know you brought up the youth as well. So we get creative at the courthouse. We do have a language line, but how we get creative with our programs and bringing the parents in is we have the kids translate, because often they're fluent in English, but the parents might have that language barrier. So we speak to the kids speak to the parents, and that come through. But the important thing for our court dealing with those different language barriers is to get the service provided. So if we can be creative and do anything, that's one way. I'll just let you know how we get creative at the court.
Can I speak to that?
Go.
I think that what we need to do is the county government needs to have a collaboration with the school system. Back in the day, when you got training and all these other refugees from all this other part of the country, they would come in and they would have English class. They would teach us English. And I think that's what needs to happen here with the refugees and the people over in Clarkston. But I think Clarkston has approximately 100 different languages in that community. maybe more. And you have a Clarkson High School. So there needs to be a collaboration with the school system to educate these kids and to teach these kids English.
And let me say that many questions came in to us concerning education in the school system. So much so that we will have a part 2, a second town hall, and this town hall will engage our school system. We will have a representative from DeKalb County Schools, also victims, or at least 2 victims of violent crimes. I'm going to tap certain community members and also mentor organizations. You know, when we talk about the school system and public education and the role that it plays in community and also combating violence, we've got to come together, and I do know that we have an approaching Board of Education and BOC, Board of Commissioners meeting. But some of these issues is going to require a greater collaboration, and we really get it. Because when you talk about violence and you talk about crime that you see in community, we have to start at the education level.
Absolutely, Commissioner. Another question, several questions came in regarding how we approach homelessness and those who are unhoused, who we might see on the streets, whether encampments or with shopping carts or just walking with really just nothing but the clothes on their backs. And so I'd invite Chief Ramos to maybe speak about how we interact and respond, but also the limitations, Chief, about what we're able to do under state law, and then maybe a little bit how we're partnering with the Community Service Board to address sort of some of the mental health crisis issues that might be involved with those who are struggling with homelessness.
We receive lots of complaints on homelessness, and one of the things I like to remind citizens is that being homeless is not a crime. And so sometimes we call the police, and the police are limited in their resources, but we reach out to the community development team. They have a group that goes out with us, and they speak to them, and they try to get them assistance. And I will say that it is very difficult. If they do not want assistance and they're not committing a crime, we as law enforcement officers cannot do anything. I will say we don't really have many success stories, but the community policing unit developed a report of a gentleman that had been homeless for, I think it was about a decade, if I'm not wrong. And they went out and they met with him weekly. They would take him little toiletries, make sure he had eaten, make sure he was taken care of, blanket when it was cold. And at some random moment, they received a phone call and said, "I'm ready." And it was such a big deal to us because they had invested so much time in just taking care of him. But he finally said, "I'm ready." And he was waiting for them with his stuff. He was ready to go in, because when they're not ready to go in, there's not much you can do. Sometimes we take them in, we get them some mental counseling. 3 days later, they're back in that same spot or another spot. But we definitely don't say it's not a police matter and ignore it. We're just very limited in what we can do.
Thank you, Chief. And I just want to piggyback on some of the things that we have discovered. And it's kind of a systemic issue as it relates to those who are homeless. And currently we have approximately 1,600 homeless throughout the county. And we have a team of specialists who work with the homeless and try to get them housed. But something, quite frankly, that I just recently discovered in meeting with the sheriff, and we all recognize that throughout the United States, the jails are the primary assistance, not only for homeless, but for those persons with mental illness. And that's kind of often a revolving circle. It's a person is picked up, they end up in jail, not that that's the best place for them, but because there's no other meaningful place for them to get assistance. But then when they come out of jail, currently, they're getting maybe 30 days worth of medication. And then what happens? After on the 31st day or so, they begin to deteriorate, they go off their medication. So conversations that we're having now with the sheriff, with Grady, is to how can we extend that? How can we put a system in place whereby when people are released, they have a longer supply of medication? and I've learned that there are actually shots that can be given where they will last 30 days and things like that. So we're really just taking a step back and looking at, once we have people and they are in our care and custody, what can we do to provide them, a more likelihood of success when they come out. And obviously, we need to have transitional housing, we need to have addiction programs, we need to have job training, all of that, so that those persons don't find themselves in circumstances that some mental illness unmanaged has gotten them into. So.
And let me say too, because I'm not sure you all that it was really underscored to the extent that it should be. By and large, DeKalb County is generally housing at any given time around 800 individuals that are homeless. We do have partnerships to help those who are in need of housing. But individuals who refuse care, we cannot force. And the bulk of the individuals that you see on the street who remain homeless suffer from one of two conditions: either a mental illness or there is a drug addiction. And it becomes extremely difficult for us. So oftentimes we're caught in a cycle of dismantling encampments, sending people along because you have to make critical issues. Am I going to arrest you? And also the fact that often these individuals are on private property. So that also creates a different situation. So we have to work very closely with property management and property owners of shopping centers. Because independent of receiving a call, now we all know what loitering is, but again, it can become a very slippery slope. And I know Miss Job is sitting here, and in her community, we had a revolving door of a gentleman. And we were dispatched numerous times. We even brought him. He finally, on one cold, rainy night, agreed to assistance. We all got together, gathered items for him, and before we could deliver them, he had already, on his own free will, independent of our ability to force care, walked away from the facility. So this is a very difficult situation that we're dealing with, and it's not that we don't care and we don't have facilities to assist. Many instances now, these are individuals who choose this life, and it's very difficult for us to force care.
Absolutely, Commissioner. There's so many success stories related to mental health and drug addiction that several of our programs, partnering with police department, the sheriff, the community service board, have been able to achieve. And a lot of that funding has come from the Board of Commissioners, the American Rescue Plan. We also heard from the medical examiner a few weeks ago, and opioid deaths and overdoses are on the rise every year the last 4 years. And one of the programs that we have funded at the Board of Commissioners is the Opioid Residential Treatment Program, which is, as Mr. Williams pointed out, supportive housing model for individuals who seek treatment, who want to get off of opioid, heroin, and other dangerous drugs, and they have a support system, a housing system that stays with them for months and months and months. And it's been a tremendously successful program, so much so that we allocated another $1 million to keep the program going because it really is rescuing so many people. I know we're running out of time here. There was just this is, we're kind of have questions all over the place. This one is more just about traffic safety, and so the question becomes, what is being done to deter reckless driving, street racing? They mentioned Panola Road, Covington Highway, Wesley Chapel roads. So anyone on the panel want to address that?
I'll attempt to answer that. One of the things we've been working on, and we were successful last year in helping to implement, was the new state law that provides a more stiffer punishment for the street racing. In the Criminal Investigations Division in the Police Department, we have an intelligence unit that works very closely with the street racing community, mostly covertly, and they don't know that we're involved and understand before they even put out their information, that we've already found out where they were going. And in many of those cases, we've been able to prevent a lot of the street racing because we will reach out to the organizers and let them know that we're aware of what they're planning. And if they do that, we will be there in force and enforce the laws and make sure that anybody that's involved with organizing those crimes is punished by the new laws that were enacted last year. So that's a big part of it. But anytime in the public, if you see anything, you hear the drag racers, the street racers, I do encourage you to call and report it. And we will do the best we can to respond as quickly as possible. But our biggest avenue is they like to advertise on social media. So we also have social media accounts, and we're able to find a lot of that information through investigations, and we're able to combat that a lot of times, like I said, ahead of time and head it off before it occurs.
Can you talk about some of the successes you've had when people have just sent some information, whether it's photos, license plates? What do your guys do with that information so that people know that maybe not at that moment, but that you still pursue it?
Yes, ma'am. Like I said, we have a very strong intelligence unit that gathers information, and in many cases, we do receive information from the public that may be that one missing piece that identifies that new participant of a street racing organization. So I do encourage anyone that has information to reach out to the precincts, to the police department. We will make sure it gets to the intelligence unit that gathers all of that intelligence information, and then we can use that for actionable intelligence to make contact with those individuals to prevent it or to apply charges where appropriate. No, sir. Four-wheelers? Yeah, they're. It has to be registered.
Let us say this, sir, because I know where you're going, and I think what most people don't realize is that ATVs, we cannot pursue them, and so they know this. So if they're in the street, they'll see us coming. They're just taunting us because we're not allowed to pursue for a traffic violation. We're not going to get somebody killed chasing someone that's on an ATV, and they know this. So sometimes, like I said, they will taunt us, but there's not much that we can do unless we catch them at a gas station fueling up or they're just jumping on it. But we will not give chase because the harm that can happen would be a lot worse than letting someone go off on an ATV.
And the best way to combat those issues in your neighborhoods is if you know who that individual is on the ATV, record that information on your cell phone of him on the ATV, send it to the police department, you identify that individual, we will make those charges based on the evidence that you provide us. We will make those charges later. Like the chief said, we can't chase them.
Yeah, we do have a big problem on Western Chapel. We have an ATV that got folks traveling about 67 miles an hour. And we need something done about it. We've had 3 or 4 fatalities of cars coming off the side street into Western Chapel. That's a big problem.
We have an email that we can provide. If we don't have it, we'll get it before we leave. I know we're wrapping up, where you can just email your pictures anonymously or just give us the information. We've gone and knocked on people's doors later on and said, we know you were out here driving, blah, 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 and it scares them enough. Sometimes the parents don't even know it's not illegal, but we will follow up, even if you don't see it at that given moment. So whatever information you can give us will definitely help us take action later on.
Excellent. The question is
Well,
about
they
whether
should
there's
not
a
be on the
helmet law.
ATV to begin with. I don't think they're going to be too focused on abiding that law. They're already breaking one.
Yes, but you should always wear a helmet. We also had another question, just going back to our original topic, and I wanted to make sure we left y'all with some resources and a more comprehensive list of opportunities to support prevention of crime and youth programming. So one of the questions came in, where can I find a comprehensive list of youth programs that are designed to provide opportunities and activities as an alternative to gangs, crime, or drug use? And you heard that from Chief Allen and Mr. Williams. Do you want to talk about the CEO's Violence Prevention Grant Program as well?
Sure, thank you, Commissioner. And a couple things. The CEO's Violence Prevention Initiative was something that was introduced in October of last year. And actually, this particular program ran through the end of June of this year. wherein about $1 million was allocated to nonprofit organizations that served youth. And each grantee received a memorandum of understanding, to discuss what they were eligible to provide and how the monies would be spent. Some of the organizations included Beulah Family Life Center, Communities in Schools Atlanta, Corners Outreach, Men Stopping Violence, Positive Growth, Project Uplift, Sur Familia, and a number of others. And so the whole intent of this program was to invest in not-for-profit organizations who had a closer reach, quite frankly, to young people. The theory is the more we can do to get young people's attention, we recognize that we are competing, whether it's having clean, safe, open parks, whether it's investing in not-for-profits, because the gangs and the other activities are also competing. We're recruiting that same base, right? We're all recruiting the same children. So that's what those programs were all about. Additionally, Community Violence Intervention Program was developed last year. Our Human Services Department was awarded $1.5 million from the United States Department of Justice. And that program invests in violence interrupters. And the goal is to reduce violence. We're working actually with Grady Hospital, Hillendale Hospital. Some of what we find is young people who find themselves in the ER because they've been shot, right? If we can intervene with those people, because they have, I think it's about a 50% likelihood of being shot again within the next 5 years, which is just absolutely tragic. So we are trying to intervene at that point, to lessen the amount of victims and victimization. Sure, yes, ma'am.
I was able to see that he was having some kind of crisis.
Yeah, mental health.
Instead of just, calling the police and saying, you need to get this man out of here, blah, blah, blah. So what I did was I said, please don't come with your horns blaring and your lights flashing and all of that. He is clearly having a challenge right now, and I need you to send someone here who can work with him. And they did that. And they handled it very well. So they were great at responding, they were great in their intervention, and they also had post-intervention because they came back to me and told me how they did follow through. So I just want to tell you that in itself is working.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. And I think we have one here.
I know we have some questions, and let me say, when we get all these things, and I sent out the list earlier, and I don't want to refer to them as things. There is so much interesting community that it bothers me and it disturbs me to bring the meeting to a close, because we haven't touched the surface of what people want to hear. So now, I believe that what we need is a day of community engagement, and on the hour, we will allow each department to talk. And you can come and spend a day with us. I think the county COO Williams should be responsible for providing food and beverage for the citizens.
Absolutely.
No pressure, but talk to the big guy. And I will come back and I'll do this with you all day long. Because it matters. And I'm so sorry that I can't do more, but the people that we need to touch aren't in this room. And that's the reality of what we deal with. So let's hear your question, and we'll try to go ahead and bring this to a close because we're already 15 minutes over.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to ask, you mentioned about police presence.
Yes.
And that there's more on the road. Are you moving those in phases? Because all I've heard is for this area of DeKalb County. However, certain areas of DeKalb County seem to be neglected. Like I live in Stone Mountain, Wisconsin. crime in the street. It's really gotten bad.
Is that our
The teens
patrol
come
area or
out,
is that
literally,
just come
they're getting to the hours. They come out between 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. with guns covered on their side, ready to shoot. If you even approach them, you're breaking in your car. And so, and I've yet to see, and it's been on next door neighbor, it's been everywhere, cameras have been on, and they've been showing the recording, and yet I don't see that presence that we're talking about. They're speaking up in the streets.
I'll take that. I'm gonna take it in two parts. One is you said you've seen it on Nextdoor. They've shown videos, but have the police seen it?
They've been called. That's the thing, they've been called. They've been called, there's records of it showing that they've been called. My next door neighbor actually sent me the video.
Specific address? Not yet. No. But I'm just thinking if we know the address, should we place them on probation or parole? We just, you know what I mean?
You said, have the police been called? Yes.
Okay.
They've been called. To see that going, I mean, like I said, these kids are giving you the time that they're there. They don't come out until 1 a.m. And so, with that being said, it should be something that is like, okay, you know what, we see what time they're actually going out, taking these neighborhoods, going to these cars. And I have always said, the presence there in return.
Okay, so two things, and there's always two things. So one, we'll get your address to make sure that we are addressing that area. We have changed the net team's hours. They used to be 10 to 10, 10 to 12. They are now working overnight to address some of these burglary issues. And I want to take advantage of saying that the reason they're breaking into your cars is because people keep leaving guns in them, and that's what they're looking for. However, yes, that's why if you have a gun, please pick up one of these locks that Commissioner Terry graciously sponsored for the police department. We want to make sure that if you're going to have a gun, that you keep it out of your car, and if you're going to keep it in your car, keep it where they can't steal it. But we do understand that there are different pockets, especially in East Precinct, and we did make an arrest just 2 days ago of 2 juveniles that were breaking into vehicles. And I will allow, if I can, Assistant Chief Hughes to discuss that, because we did have an arrest, and we believe that that was going to cut back on some of the entering auto problems. And we do want your address before we leave.
So yes, just to piggyback on what Chief Ramos said, I will get your information. Are you also familiar with a POAP request, patrol often as possible? And I'll educate you on that as well. That kind of will give us specific addresses and times, and what we do is we record and make sure that officers are frequent in the area at that time. Yes, ma'am. All right, so we'll talk and I'll get you information. Yes, ma'am. We don't have a WhatsApp.
You know, we don't have one, but we'll look into it. We have our PIO in the back, so that'll be her next project. So we brought everybody, if you haven't noticed, a little bit of everybody. So we'll get her to look into that. Thank you.
Yes. And with that said, I don't want to keep you all any longer. It is now 7:48. Again, I want to say thank you. I hope this has been informative to you. There's so much more we can do and we will continue to do on your behalf. We cannot legislate morality and decency, but working within the confines of what we have. I know personally that when there are requests such as was just made, that we enhance patrols, but we've all just got to be vigilant. I've seen the videos of individuals that come into the community. I've seen 2 breaking in the car as another stands at the edge of the driveway holding what appears to be an assault-style weapon, just waiting for whatever. So we are under attack, and you all need to be very mindful of that, because it's only so much that we can do. We all have to be mindful of safety. So thank you all so much for coming, and now I'll turn it over to Commissioner Terry.
No, thank you, Commissioner. And just closing us out here, so I know Chief Ramos can share the information about some of the specific questions, because several of these cards were about specific issues that I think are directly impacting you. And we definitely invite you and encourage you to always reach out to our police department, to everyone up here, including the commissioner's offices. We are constantly, every day, Commissioner, we have our inbox full of questions, support requests, and our DeKalb police respond immediately. Code compliance responds immediately. We are one DeKalb. We are a team. We're very excited to continue to discuss future town halls, future investments from the Board of Commissioners. We're working with the administration to really provide more of all of the things we're talking about tonight, whether it's the gun locks, extra patrols, helping with our recruitment, more technology, more investment in our DeKalb Police Athletic League programs, our youth violence prevention programs. It really takes a whole community, and we as it's been said before, don't tell me what you believe, show me your budgets. And I can tell you that the Board of Commissioners, the CEO, the whole DeKalb County government is putting our money into the programs and investments we know that will keep our community safe. So Commissioner Cochran-Johnson and the District 7 team, thank you all so much for really organizing us together, bringing everyone together. Thank you to our esteemed panel from probation, police, fire, the CEO's office. We gratefully thank you for your time this evening. And Chief Ramos, can you share that email one last time for everyone listening or in the audience to
I'd like
be in
to share
contact?
two, actually. So one is going to be DeKalbintel@DeKalbCountyGA.gov. That is for any drag racing, any reckless driving. You can send your videos, license plate numbers, and they'll do some research on there. So once again, it's DeKalbintel@DeKalbCountyGA.gov. And then I have provided all of the information for all of our precincts, but if you're not getting the response that you need, please feel free to send me an email at DKPDChief@DeKalbCountyGeorgia.gov, and that's GA.gov. Everybody knows if you email me, I'm going to follow up. I'm going to give it to someone else, but I'm going to follow up and make sure that it gets handled. But the precinct commanders do a really good job. So all of their information, find them on the cards in the back. We want you to know where to find us. Community meetings, you can get that on social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they'll let you know when your neighborhood is having a meeting. And I just have one last thing to say. The administration does support our community programs, so hopefully within the next few months you will have a PAL building just down the street at 1807 Candler Road, where the youth can go play basketball, play video games, and encounter the police for them there during business hours. So we're hoping to bring that to you soon. We're working on it now, and thanks to the administration, we're on our way to making that happen. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chief, and thank you everyone for being here. We'll hang around a little bit longer, but good night, everyone. Thank you.